Good afternoon, everyone. I just want to make sure first that everyone can hear me. So if you could just respond in the chat function, so that way then we can continue to have a discussion throughout the whole process. So good afternoon, my name is Liz Duffy. I am an assistant professor here in the Department of Pathology, as well as the program director for the Masters in Pathology and Laboratory Sciences. With me today is Morgan Thompson, a graduate of the program who is also a senior research assistant in the department and was hired after completing her degree. I welcome questions through the chat function throughout this whole presentation. I will try and answer them as I go along, but if I don't get to them, I will get to you by the end of the presentation. I would love it if everyone who is currently logged in, if you could just go ahead and type something like hi, and that way it helps us to determine who was here today and gives us a good record. So let's go ahead and get started and learn about the program in Pathology and Laboratory Sciences. So why would you choose Boston University? And sorry, I'm also having technical help from Morgan. Why would you choose Boston University, and specifically, why would you choose Pathology and Laboratory Sciences? Our small Boston-based program was originally started to create a pool of strong research technicians, knowledgeable in the science of pathology. As our program has grown, so have our goals. Our pool of students is very diverse, as are their goals, ranging from working in a research or clinical lab or going for a PhD and even on to medical school. The pathology program is unique from other programs in that it allows for both intra and interdepartmental collaborations, as our department and projects include connections to almost all of the departments, cancer care, immunology, metabolomics, etc., that are within our campus. So we have a very diverse faculty, both basic science researchers and physician scientists. All the faculty prioritize graduate student learning and enjoy students who are eager to learn. So formal mentoring program has been set up into place to help guide you through the program. We also offer study and tutoring groups to help you with any courses that might be difficult. And then given the small size of the program, because we usually only have around 10 people per year, the staff and the faculty really get a chance to work closely with you and help guide you into your next steps. So we have more opportunities for participation and feedback. The Department of Pathology has a high standard of professionalism, and we strive to provide excellent service with all who interact with the laboratory. So we have some really great potential for experiencing interactions with patients. We utilize a thesis-based portion of it, so your whole entire second year is based on research lab experience. And the end goal of our graduates is to be capable in the mechanisms and origins of human disease at the molecular or organism level. We develop students into independent scientists prepared to pursue a diversity of careers, whether it be medical school, PhD, or other gainful employment. So our program is traditionally done in 2 years, utilizing the summer in between to do the bulk of the thesis lab-based research. The first 2 semesters are course heavy, with expectations that you will do lab rotations to identify the lab that you would like to work in. In the second year, you'll finish up some of the courses, but mainly focus on your research. And then in your final semester, you will finish writing your thesis and present your work to the entire department. So in your first semester, you'll take courses like biochemistry, the business of science, histopathology, and start your lab rotations. In your second semester, you'll take courses like immunology, basic and experimental pathology that also includes a seminar course. You'll take special topics in pathology, which can be a range of topics, but typically focuses on signaling. and then also a course in biospecimen science. You'll continue doing your lab rotation, hopefully in this semester, identifying the lab that you'd like to work in. Then over the summer, we expect continual work on your thesis lab rotations, working about 40 hours a week to try and get the data that you need to complete your thesis. And then in your third semester, you'll finish up with some courses like biostatistics, and then you'll also register for that point for the pathology seminars that we host in the fall semester. That's where we have invited speakers coming into pathology talking about their research. This is when you'll finish your lab work and start writing your thesis. And then in your final semester, again, you'll write your thesis, you'll present the work at the department seminar, and then you'll graduate. So it's a pretty quick program that really expands your potential in science.
Exactly. So I'm going to talk about the rotations quickly. So as Ms. Duffy had mentioned, you start your lab rotations hopefully in the fall semester that you are enrolled. And this is only about 10 hours a week for them. You pick a lab from the faculty that are available and start your lab rotations. You might want to learn a specific technique that you don't have any experience in. So for example, when I came in, I didn't have a lot of experience with working with any microbes or some of the basic science techniques like PCR, Western blot, I didn't have a lot of experience with. So I chose a lab based on both the PI, the personality that I liked, and experience that I was looking for with the techniques. And you start your first rotation. So this will go on for approximately 4 to 6 weeks, however long you have time for. And then if you'd like, you can do a second rotation. And for me, this meant going to another lab and bringing a technique back to that first lab because I really liked that interaction that I had with the PI for the first lab. So I learned immunohistochemistry in my second lab rotation, brought it back and used it in my thesis. So you can do as many rotations as you like in our program and hopefully learn a bunch of different techniques that you're interested in, figure out what you like, figure out what you don't like. Some people really don't like animal work. Some people really love animal work, so you might want to choose something that you're interested in career-wise. So that's basically the rotations, and there are plenty of labs to do rotations in. So here we highlighted with asterisks some of the labs that our students are currently in. So Dr. Rahimi works in angiogenesis, and he also works in immunology and inflammation. He's a senior mentor here that has mentored a lot of different students. There is a biocomputational connection available through Dr. Campbell, and I actually work with him myself, and we take specimens from the OR and are able to sequence them so that we get some more information that we can use to look at different disease populations and different patient populations here at UNC. Dr. Shatalia also has a connection to cancer, and Dr. Jones and Dr. Dennis, those last two are interested particularly in breast cancer. Dr. Mazzilli has an interest in lung cancer and small nodules and pre-malignant lesions. Dr. Connors runs the Amyloid Center, or the research in the Amyloid Center. There are also clinical connections through Dr. Henderson, who runs the renal pathology lab and runs the electron microscopy lab, if anyone is interested in learning that very niche technique. And Dr. Burks, who works with the OR samples, he looks through cases clinically to determine differences in pathology and pathogenesis. There are connections to infectious disease here. We have the National Emerging Infectious Disease Laboratory, and Dr. Crossland works in there, and so does Dr. Anderson. Dr. Anderson works with gynecological research, women's OBGYN research. So that is very interesting. Ms. Duffy, who's here, she and Dr. Andrew work in biospecimen science, as well as I have a bit of a connection in that department too. And then immunology, inflammation, Dr. Remick, our former chair, is still here doing research, as well as Dr. Rahimi, who I'd already mentioned. Dr. Dennis, who is interested in metabolomics, also has that interest in cancer that I mentioned before. And then we have kind of what BU has been in the news for, those neurodegenerative diseases. So we have several scientists working on those as well, Dr. Bluestein, Dr. Slack, and Dr. Malone. So,
and to add to those neurodegenerative diseases, we do also have a connection to the VA Center here, where our brain bank is, that has been specifically in the news for the CTE diseases that have been out there. And one of our students actually is currently in there. Those are the kinds of rotations that we highly encourage you to do, but those are also the ones that you need to be aware of, that if you want to do those, you need to start the application process to get into those labs very early. So that one, or into Dr. Crossland's lab, which is in the NEEDL, the National Emerging Infectious Disease Laboratory, because they have a lot of background checks that they need to do prior to doing that. So those are ones that we are always happy to help you get into, just with that little knowledge that you want to start that early. Okay, so now we'll go on, and actually we'll take 2 seconds to see if there are any questions.
I also did want to point out, before you do the rotations, there's an opportunity that we would be able to teach you some of those preliminary techniques. If you're coming into this program without ever knowing how to use the pipetter or some really basic lab math, we take that upon ourselves to make sure that you're prepared for your rotations and you're ready to learn.
That was a new program that we started this past year with Morgan's help, really forging that ahead, because we don't want you to feel intimidated when you're going to a PI. And it helps, accelerate your learning process, so we can really dive down into the techniques instead of trying to focus on some of that basic knowledge. So, okay, so we will continue moving on. So I just want to highlight some of our recent graduates and where they've gone with their work. So we had Ellie Burns, who worked with the Bluestein lab in the neurodegenerative area. She worked on Alzheimer's disease, looking at some molecules that we feel might be responsible for Alzheimer's progression, specifically choline. She has recently procured a job at one of the core genetics lab that's in Cambridge here in Boston, and doing very well as a research technician there. We have another student, Razi, who did her vascular thesis with Dr. Rahimi and looking at angiogenesis there. She was just actually started her PhD program here at BU and was accepted in there. We have Nicole, who did her work in immunology with Dr. Susan Winandy, looking at a mouse model of lymphoma and looking at T cells specifically. She also had just accepted a research tech position at a local hospital. We have Zachary Student, who's actually currently still working. He came to us from outside our program, so he was doing it a little bit of a long distance relationship because he's in northern Massachusetts, and he's from industry, and so he is doing his thesis with us now. Then we have Joseph, who did his work in kidney disease, and he just went back into industry after his 2-year hiatus doing his work here as a research tech. And then we have Michelle Way, who did her work in infection in Dr. Remick's lab, and she was just recently accepted into a PhD program, and she's very excited about that. And then we have Echo, who also graduated, and he was also someone who came to us from industry and wanted to advance his skills. And he has returned back to his industry job, and he did also an inflammation study with Dr. Remick. So we have a lot of opportunities. We have a lot of our students who go to different departments to do their work. Currently, we have some of our students who are in the pulmonary labs, again, the one that is over at the VA, some who are in the Department of Medicine doing biocomputational work, and they're all doing well. And because we have that ability, because pathology touches so many departments within the hospital, that is an excellent opportunity to be able to broaden your research while still getting the degree that says pathology. And I lost my train of thought, so give me 2 seconds while I regain it. I wanted to encourage everyone to submit an application if you haven't already. We look forward to learning more about you and what you might have to offer for the program, and we would love to see you around campus. So if there are, oh, I'm sorry, we actually have one more slide talking about some of the other work that we have done here. Our students also, the one great thing that has been possible for our students is publications. And so that only raises their degree to the next level. So that way, when they're applying for PhD school or applying for medical school, when they can put publications on there, it just makes their applications that much stronger. So many of our students have been able to publish recently. So one of our former students, Carolina, was able to publish with her mentor, Susan with Andy. Another student that was with Dr. Rahimi, Dr. Shatalia, Dr. Rahimi's group, again with the same student, so he was actually able to get out 2 publications. Tim Norman is someone who actually took from the master's program again into the PhD program here, and he just recently graduated, and he was actually our commencement speaker. He did a fantastic job. He is currently getting a postdoc in the local area. We have our own Morgan Thompson, who was able to do a publication on some work that we did for a contract for NCI, looking at a computational solution when some of our data didn't go the way that we thought it was going to. So pathology is a very high growing field. There are over 26,000 jobs that list 26 million, sorry, I can't read units apparently, jobs in pathology that mention that. And we're expecting that to grow by another 13% nationwide. So of that 26 million, 2.5 million require a master's degree as part of their job. So 2,000 of these opportunities are actually here in Massachusetts. So if you are local to here, that is an excellent chance for you. And Boston and Cambridge are a huge center for many scientists around here. Some of the jobs that you can look at after getting a master's is laboratory manager, senior research assistant, clinical research, a biologist, medical scientist, or laboratory technologist, or even a faculty member, as I am also a graduate of this program. So I can now open it up to questions, and I do see that we have at least one at this point. Applications, we have a rolling applications process. So we can accept domestic applications up until July 15th and international applications up until July 1st. So you have time to get those applications in. If you have any further questions about what it's like to be a part of our program, what it's like to live here in Boston if you're coming from afar, you should also have an opportunity to go to other fair sessions today that might be talking about housing, financial aid, and I believe ISSO, if you're an international candidate, is also giving a seminar today for what those expectations would be. If you have any questions about any of this, you can feel free to reach out to myself. My email is up on the screen now, or to our program administrator, Debbie Kiley, and she will always direct you to whoever you need to go to answer your question. We also listed our website up there if you would like to take a look at that. Get another question asking about shadowing opportunities. And yes, there are many, many shadowing opportunities. We actually now onboard you as soon as you get accepted to the program. We also onboard you to the hospital because we are a part of Boston Medical Center. And so we give you that opportunity to shadow clinicians, whether it be in pathology. There's potential that we could reach out to surgery if that's something you'd like to do. You have the opportunity to observe autopsies and the grossing work that goes down in the pathology laboratory. So there's a lot of opportunities there. We have another question asking about a GRE requirement. There is no requirement to do GRE for our program. If you've already taken them, they can help, but you are not required to have them in order to apply. We do have, for any international candidates, we do have a TOEFL requirement, and I believe the university sets that at, I believe the score is 600. But sometimes that can be waived if your education was done in English, and there can be some other caveats. I also understand that currently, right now, there might be, because of our current coronavirus issues, there might be other ways to get the TOEFL requirement set aside if you are coming from an international place, because a lot of those testing centers have been shut down for fear of spreading the virus. So there is information on the GMS website about places that you can go to get those requirements done. GPA requirements, we try and take a very holistic look at your application. So even if you did not have the best GPA in your undergrad, we try and take a look at who you are as a person. We take into account your letters of recommendation, which I'll just state here just to make sure that you can pass along as you apply. All 3 recommendations have to be on letterhead from the person who is giving the recommendation and include a signature. So we try and look at those and try and assess how you might have done in classes or in a research setting. If you have done any research, we really encourage you to highlight that in your personal statement and getting that as part of your recommendation, because that's a big part of what you'll be expected to do here. So that can definitely help. We also look, if you have work history, that can also show a sense of professionalism and other things like that. So we really try and take a look at everything around you, and we don't try and boil it down just to GPAs. Are there any other questions? If not, thank you so much for taking the time to listen to us here. For anyone who may have come in late, or if you know of anyone else who is interested in the program, this presentation should be uploaded to the GMS website where you registered by early next week. I believe the goal is by the 11th of March. And I just want to thank you again for taking the time, and we look forward to seeing you around campus. Thank you so much.